Conclusion inevitable.
It was a jump to conclusions, Matt.
My conclusion was that this idea was not a practical deterrent.
My only conclusion can be that it was a Sith Lord.
In conclusion.
Hello there, folks. Welcome back to In Conclusion, the only movie podcast that has a devastating secret to reveal to you. Did you know that old Hollywood was debaucherous?
Honestly, my pearls were clutch. Oh, wait, you didn't introduce me yet. Nobody said
I didn't
that.
introduce you. Stop talking. I'm Dan O'Keefe, and joining me as always is Anna Otto. Anna, how are you?
Oh. This morning I realized I never put my parents on my wedding invite list, and they didn't get save the dates. so that was an accident. And now
Sure
they've been
was.
invited, but my dad told me that it was the biggest snub of all time. And that he believes now he is being pity invited. He's kidding. I swear to God he's kidding. But they're also paying
It's
for
like
my
the
wedding,
iron
so.
claw of your wedding.
Yeah, literally. Anyway, Dan, how are you?
I'm good. It's raining in Los Angeles.
I saw that on Paula's story. I was like, what?
Paula Two's our previous guest here on In Conclusion.
Shout out, Paula. Thank you for the follow. Followed her back.
Yeah, I'm raining, and because it's such a novel thing, I went outside in the rain, and my pants just got soaked. I was outside for like 5 minutes. Didn't even get any rain on them. I just pissed myself.
I knew it. I was going to say, do you potty, Dan?
What?
Oh.
You know how you hear running water, it makes you go. I
Not
hate
me.
this
I like
podcast.
to
I
sleep
hate this
through it.
introduction already.
All
I'm
right,
keeping
introduce
it.
Ian.
I'm not going to redo it. I
Great.
just hate it. But actually, it's fitting with the amount of urine in this movie. Also joining us today, our special guest, maybe the queen bee of the Babylon Hive, Ian Schrank. Hi, Ian. How are you?
Hey, I've always wanted to be called that, and thank God you didn't. You ended the piss sentence and then introduced me. I'm like, oh no, I see where this segue is going, and I'm not happy. But you didn't do it, so I am happy. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I stopped myself from doing the introduction of, and speaking of piss, Ian Schrank.
Yep,
I
I
also
felt it.
appreciate you not doing that. I want to just start off this podcast by letting Ian know that upon seeing the soon-to-be, better described pee scene, I texted Dan, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, you texted me that, and I didn't know where you were in the movie. How far into it you were. I was like, is she 1 minute in? Is she 20 minutes in?
I was 1 minute
You're gonna
in.
have to be more
Gage and
specific.
Gage and I put it on, and I was painting a little sign with gnomes on it, and it says "Be happy," and they have bees on them. And I looked up at the screen, and Gage looked up at his phone, and we saw pee. And Gage said, "Hold on, we can't be doing other things. I can tell we're gonna need to focus on this film because it's bonkers." And I said, "Great." So that's where I was.
I mean, that's what I love about the beginning. It demands your attention, and up front, it's just like, if you're not enjoying yourself, turn it off. It's 3 more hours of this.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I would argue maybe it both demands your attention and then also punches you in the face.
It
So
grabbed
it's
me
more
by the
than just
shirt
like a
collars.
demand. Yeah. It's like holding you over a ledge. It's like you are staying here or you're going. There are 2 options. You're not going to halfway be in or out.
I
think that's fair. I like you mentioned, I'm a fan of this movie, and one of the things I love is the sort of abrasive nature of it.
Mm-hmm.
I texted a friend of mine as I was watching, I like this movie, but early on, I think the first scene where Manny and Nellie are talking, it's just a dialogue scene, but the editing is so chaotic.
Yes.
I would almost call it bad. And then they do the same thing later, and I'm like, this is great. I love it. And it's just I love that it's so imperfect. There are moments I love and moments I'm like, why are they doing this? But that makes me love it more because this movie just does not give a fuck. And Can I say that? Is this
Can you
I
swear
just
on this
said it.
podcast?
Have you listened to
Can I?
my sailor mouth? I'm trying to tone it back. Oh my goodness.
Oh, sorry. No, I just
you
wait
do
for
what
myself
you
to
want.
talk.
I am psychotic, so
This episode of In
Great.
Conclusion is sponsored by that episode of SpongeBob where they start swearing and it's all dolphin noises.
Patrick called up Arya.
Oh, you always saw the censored version of that? As a kid, I saw the OG one, but I guess I'm old.
Anyway, the movie that we're talking about today, which we've already started talking about but haven't revealed yet in case you can't read the title of the episode. The movie we're talking about today is Babylon, 2022's biggest box office bomb.
Which is crazy because I'm going to say something wild that I don't think you'd expect from me, Dan. I loved this movie.
That is wild.
I know. Can you believe?
I was
finished
waiting
it.
to hear your take.
I finished it and I went, I really enjoyed this.
Okay, hold that thought.
Okay.
Directed and written by Damian Chazelle, produced by Mark Platt, Matthew Pluff, and Olivia Hamilton, who also plays the director in this movie, starring Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, Diego Calva, Gene Smart, Jovan Adepo, Lee Jun Lee, P.J. Byrne, Lucas Haas, member of Leonardo DiCaprio's Merry Band of Misfits. They don't go by that name, though.
Ew,
They're
I don't know why
they're
I
a
have
certain
the ick.
posse. Also, I only mention Max Minghella because he is the son of the director of the movie that we're talking about next week, which I will reveal later, and Tobey Maguire.
You're not doing First Man next week? I thought this was the Chazelle show.
Oh my
Like
god.
most of society, we're kind of just skipping First Man.
We're picking our
Yeah.
favorites.
Hey, I saw First Man in theaters.
Oh,
I thought it was good.
not me.
I have it on digital, and I have not clicked on it yet. I've had it since 2018.
Sensational.
Music by Curb
I'll
Your
watch it.
Enthusiasm's Justin Hurwitz.
Ooh.
Music by
Big Justin fan.
both mine and Ian's #1 Spotify artist last year.
I don't think he was my number one. He was number 5, but still, I'm like, did I listen to Babylon that much?
Dear Lord.
The answer is yes. Call Me Manny is track number 1.
Well, my #1 was Fall Out Boy, so I can't relate. Sorry, guys.
No, don't worry. They were on there too.
Oh, thank
I'm all
God.
types of cringe.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. You
Different
have to be at least a
flavors.
little cringe to be here.
Released on December 23rd, 2022. Merry Christmas. With a budget
film.
with a budget of $80 million, it made $63.4 million at the box office. Did not even
Mortifying.
break even before marketing.
Dang, that's so cringe.
It's
According-
a crime.
It was allegedly it would have had to have made $250 million at the box office to break even. It only made $15 million in the U.S.
Oh, so that's a lot of money then from overseas.
Yeah.
Dang. Dang. And they had big
Do we know
stars.
what country was Babylon crazy?
You
Probably
know,
China.
Probably China.
They consume a
They
lot
see
of
a lot of
media over
movies.
there, I feel like, right?
You're going to be shocked, actually. Bangladesh.
Oh!
Huge for Babylon. #1 grossing film in Bangladesh ever is a lie that I just made up.
I believed you, Dan.
I know.
I was going to say,
They
interesting
have a
choice.
statue of Jack Conrad in Bangladesh. in
Dear
the Capitol
Lord.
building.
On Rotten Tomatoes, Babylon has a 57% approval rating, saying, Babylon's overwhelming muchness is exhausting, but much like the industry it honors, its well-acted, well-crafted glitz and glamour can often be an effective distraction.
I think everybody had just had their feelings hurt. Because they were like, this isn't what Hollywood's like.
I thought this was going to be another La La Land. This made me
Literally.
depressed.
Literally.
At the Oscars, it was nominated for 3 awards: Best Costume Design, Best Original Score, and Best Production Design. It did not win any of them.
Oh,
Best-
man.
It should have won Best Original Score. I'll get back to that in a while. It lost Best Costume Design to Ruth Carter for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. It lost Best Production Design to All Quiet on the Western Front, and it lost Best Original Score to the 3 dubstep notes, also from All Quiet on the Western Front.
I'm sure All Quiet on the Western Front is a fine movie, but I remember hating it when it snubbed Babylon twice.
Yes.
You know what?
The Oscars, I know everyone says this, but like the Oscars in their commercials that year used the Babylon score to be like, aren't you excited for movies? Isn't this song great? It's not Oscar worthy.
No. And it lost to the score that is, I'm not kidding you, bwah, bwah, bwah. Every
Ew.
time that All Quiet on the Western Front won an award, they would play the music as they walked on stage, so there was just this dirge accompanying all these German people up to announce and give their speeches.
Oh, I really...
And you could see the guy in the band with the didgeridoo ready to hit that Babylon note, and they never got to do it.
Quaking with the didgeridoo.
I love how much didgeridoo is in this movie.
Lord.
I'm glad that you didgeridoo.
Thanks.
Thank you. Ian, when did you first see Babylon? What was that experience like?
Let's see.
Was it religious?
I wish I was more surprised by it, but a friend of mine had already seen it. I remember seeing the trailers and being like, that could be good, and everyone said, no, it can't. You're wrong about that, Ian.
From the trailer? Foolish.
Yeah, like a lot of people didn't like the look of the trailer. I'm like, I think this could be something.
I think a lot of
And
people
my
didn't like how there was one trailer that played in theaters for like 4 months.
Oh.
Which is fair. That's a whole other thing that we'll probably get into later. I don't know if you've seen videos of people like dissecting how bad the marketing is, but at no point in any of the marketing do they say from the director of La La Land and Whiplash. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? Why would you not say that? They
Yeah,
all
I
said
feel
Damian
like
Chazelle. I'm like, no one knows this man.
No, I could not pick that man off the streets. I think you're right. They should have said those other 2 hits.
I mean, I like him. I want him to make more stuff, but it's like, it's an old Hollywood movie. Why would you not say from the people who made La La Land?
Right?
It just seems
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so my friend saw it. My friend who really said the trailer looked bad and was like, wait, Ian, Babylon is great. We need to go. I'm like, is it? And it was. I loved it. But, like, even within the text of Babylon is great, it was followed up with, my roommate walked out an hour and a half in. So, like, I already knew it was divisive. And it has continued to be, I think, so divisive. You either love it or hate it. I only know, like, one person who said it was fine. It's either I love it or I can't stand it. And I think that's beautiful.
I'm looking to you, Dan, because I cannot wait to hear what you think.
It's tough to be in the middle ground.
Can you believe? Shook.
Right?
Shocked.
There are things that I like about it. There are things that I dislike about it. My first experience watching this, and the only time that I watched it prior to, I would say 2 days ago, but also 3 days ago, because this was a 2-night experience.
Oh. We thought
Really?
it was going to be a 2-night experience for us, and then, we slipped and the remote didn't come to our hands. We just kept it on.
Anna and I started watching it at like 8 p.m.
Okay, mistake number 1.
Mistake number 1, right?
Yeah.
This is a 6 p.m. at latest start time.
That's when we did ours, 6 p.m.
I know. I could
And you
go
eat
by
before-
Oh, yeah, that's
Beforehand.
right. I texted you.
I sat down with my dinner ready to enjoy it, and it's like, Ian, you know it starts with elephant shit. Why did you do this? But I finished it, the food, and the movie.
Perfect.
First time I watched it, I saw it alone at a AMC Broadway 4 in Santa Monica, which is the theater is underground and always smells like sewage.
Oh, absolutely.
I was going to say, I guess some people go to that one. That's always
Yeah.
the one that I'm like, oh, it's at the bottom of the app, but yeah, I guess it's close to you.
Dan, what a immersive experience that must have been.
It was. Anna,
You saw a rat scurry by and you thought, could be good.
am I at the party? Am I there right now?
In the film.
Da-na-na-na-na? Not.
Anna was
My favorite
out of
quote.
town. She was still in the Midwest after Christmas. So it was just me. I think it was around the same time. I might be combining two different memories, but I think Charlie Day's movie had come out around the same time, Fool's Paradise, and I saw that alone too, and that was not very good, but that was very short. And then
That was like a year later, I think.
oh no, I'm getting that. And I saw that and Blackberry in the same week, which is why I'm getting them mixed up. Also alone.
You go to the
But-
movies alone a lot. My
Hey.
nightmare.
I'm not talking to people. What? I'm sitting
know.
in a
Yeah,
theater alone.
I think
Come
I told
on.
you this, but like, when people go to the movies alone and I'm seeing a movie and I see them walk in, I get instantly nervous. I don't know
Yeah.
why.
That's why I always make sure to sit next to someone who I don't know and really just
Oh.
like not introduce myself to them, just breathe heavily.
Oh, my nightmares. Anyway, go
Wait,
on.
that's you? I'm like, who's this person who's always breathing down my neck at the movies?
Oh, Dan, even just hearing you breathe like that is literally making
I was
the
always
hairs on
too
my neck
scared
stand
to
up.
turn around. I would have recognized you.
Well, you don't recognize me scratching behind your ears too when it looks like you have an itch. So anyway, I was in the theater alone, and after the first 5 minutes, I don't consider leaving the theater very often. But after the initial elephant shitting on the audience, I was like, do I just leave now?
That was one of the things that drew us in.
Of course it was.
We
you
were shook.
perverted freak.
No! Not like
But
that.
then I persevered. I kept going, and I was like, oh. And then about 2 hours in, I was like, you know what? This is a pretty good movie. And then it kept going, and it just wouldn't end. And I was like, too much. Pull back, Damian Chazelle. I love a long movie. A long movie is great.
Not
Didn't
this
need
one.
it. This could have been 2 hours.
I
Okay.
remember a friend of mine said, I was like, I loved it, all of it. And he said, I think there's a fantastic 2-hour movie in there.
Yes. 100%.
I can see that. I respect that opinion. But I think there's something charming about the obnoxious runtime. Like, I think part of the charm is how insane it is. Like, you could make some decisions that would improve the movie, but I think it's fun how insane and too much it is. I think it's part of the charm.
100%. Anna, your
Yes.
first time watching this was this weekend, correct?
Yeah, it was. It was. And I, had a little tummy ache. So we were watching this movie because I, wanted to do something because my stomach hurt. So that sounds stupid. Anyway, I am rambling. Let me start again. Yes, the first time I saw this movie was
Not
this
cutting
weekend.
that out.
No, Dan, please. Anyway, so we put it on.
You
and
think
I
I
was,
edit this?
I was really nervous because usually, a long movie, I'm like, ugh, I don't like long movies. I love a tight 90.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, once the elephant thing happened and once the peeing happened, I was like, what is going on with this movie? There's a lot to unpack here. So I settled in and then my eyes were glued to the screen. That's it. I loved it.
It's incredible that that's what drew you in.
I love weird shit, Dan.
Yeah,
I was like, what is going on here? Like, I wanted to know more just because it was so weird.
Mm.
You
I
don't
didn't
like
have that
weird
reaction.
stuff?
I was like, I don't need to see this.
It was just like, it's so bonkers, I can't look away.
Eh.
Okay, well, Ian, I'm turning my reaction to you.
Yeah, you're right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Exactly, is all I gotta say. It's like, it's like what I said before. I feel like the movie announces, this is kind of all it's gonna be. If you're not down with this, we're not gonna stop. And it almost invites you to walk out of a movie 5
It
minutes
does.
in.
And I respect that 100%. I've never enjoyed potty humor. And I think,
Well, I'm sorry that you have such refined taste, Dan.
I'm sorry, I like a good film that makes me chuckle, but not truly open my mouth to laugh. That's the level of humor that I'm looking for.
Dan, no.
What's really funny, though, as you say that, I feel like in general my opinion is not a fan of potty humor. Or, like, I find it obnoxious when movies have people, like, puke a lot and stuff.
Oh, God, yes.
And I think because the elephant shit is so insane in my mind, it's absurd. But it's like, I noticed that this weekend I watched Dune 2, and I'm like, there's a lot more vomit in this movie than I expected there to be.
Yeah.
Not like tons of it, but I didn't expect any. Same with like, what was it? It Chapter 2, Bill Hader
so much
pukes like
vomit
3
in
times
It
in that
Wait,
movie. And I'm like, why?
Let's not come for that movie. Wait. Wait.
Yeah, no, you can skip that one. Just the first one's good. But
You know who's really into vomit humor, at least in one movie? My dad. Specifically in Pitch Perfect.
Okay, I didn't like that part of Pitch Perfect, but he is allowed to enjoy what he enjoys.
I guess I don't remember Pitch Perfect that well.
Pitch Perfect
like
is
the
my dad's
opening.
favorite movie.
He's a man of refined taste.
He is a 62-year-old man.
You know what? More power to him.
I respect it so much. We have a recording of it that not from... It's on their DVR. It's not from like an HBO recording or something. And there are commercials in it, and he does not fast forward through them.
Oh, that's so iconic.
It's a fun period piece.
Yeah.
It is.
Like a little time capsule of an experience.
Um,
That's how I feel with commercials in general, because I just don't watch cable anymore.
Oh, right. I
Me
get
either.
like TikTok compilations of this is a commercial break from 2003, and I'm like, I'm sitting through it. I'm watching this whole thing.
When they do the ones that are for like the old albums they used to advertise on TV, and it's like,
Yeah.
'cause I'm your lady. Like
Imagine
those kinds
owning all of the world's greatest love songs.
Yes. Oh my god. Also, I would just like to say I normally don't like potty humor either. Thank you. The mere thought of poop makes me want to throw up.
Gotta be on the record here, because it
Yeah.
seems like I'm the shit lover. I am not.
I am not. I will admit that I do laugh at the term pee pee poo poo sometimes, but that's it. Okay, coming clean.
Seems like you're coming dirty. Thank you.
You're not welcome.
Yeah.
I hate it here. I'm leaving.
Let's get into the movie. Speaking of elephant shit, the movie starts out with an elephant shitting on the camera because Manny Torres, played by Diego Calva, who I had never seen before and was immediately like, this guy is so hot.
I agree.
Where has he been all my life?
He was kind of fine. I said.
Yeah, watching it again, I'm like, this should have been a breakout role for him, and I still want him to be in something else, because I feel like I always joke that like people either love this movie or hate it. Mostly people haven't seen it. I talk about this movie and they're like, I've never heard of that, and it's like, it has Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie. They're like, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm like, no, the other one. Like, this should have been a big breakout moment for Diego Calva, and I think he still deserves that moment. Hopefully he'll get it.
New season of NCIS LA starring him, maybe? TV's #1 show. He's pushing an elephant up a mountain to get to a mansion in the undeveloped Bel Air of 1926. Because what's going on there? That's right. A good old-fashioned Hollywood rager. Big-ass party going on.
Whoa.
Party never killed nobody, you know what I mean?
Well, actually...
Someone dies.
I said it and then I realized. My bad. Bad joke.
Someone does
There's
die
only
at this
one
party.
death that we focus on. You know,
Yeah.
there could have been more.
And
a death
Flea
for the
has to
plot,
deal
right?
with it.
Yeah, I like halfway through, I'm like, is that Flea?
I've seen Flea act in, I think, this is the second movie I've seen him act in. The other one was
What's the other one?
Boy Erased. If you remember
Is that
that.
the one about the guy that goes to the gay conversion camp?
Yeah, and Flea's one of the like counselors.
I'm
I
looking
saw
it
that
up
movie.
because
I
I
had
didn't.
no idea that Flea was the counselor.
Oh shoot!
That's so weird.
I didn't realize that was him. Lest we forget, I'm bad at recognizing people. Huh.
Did you know that Brad Pitt was in this movie, Anna?
I did know Brad Pitt was in the movie. Thank you very much. He's in a couple of random movies. He was in Back to the Future 2. And
oh, yeah, he's Needles. Duh.
Man, I really don't recognize anyone, huh?
Oh,
That's
we're
not a
talking
duh
about
to you,
Flea.
that's a duh
I'm
to
like,
me.
Oh.
I'm like, who's Brad Pitt in Back to the Future 2?
He's 3D.
He's also in the first Back to the Future. This is crazy. Good for Flea. This man I never would have recognized in my entire life. But now that I'm looking at a picture of him, I'm realizing who it is.
Anyway, big Hollywood party at studio executive Don Wallach's mansion. Debauchery.
Is it frozen?
Alcohol. Am I frozen?
You were frozen, but I hear you now.
You're not frozen for me.
The government's trying to fuck on me.
Quick question. Are we going to go through play-by-play the whole movie? Because we're going to be here for way too long.
Dan usually does some skimming.
Yeah, I skim it. We don't do every scene. The big ones. Basically, I take a synopsis of it, go through that, add in sprinkles of what I remember.
We can't be here all night because I'll fall asleep.
Well, that's the thing is that I assumed we'd go through it, but the level of detail you're going, I'm like, we're going to hit 3 hours. We're going to do the whole movie.
Longer than the movie, baby. That's the goal. Over the course of this, we've had maybe 15 episodes where our conversation is longer than the movie.
Oh, my God.
I do think all of our Oceans movie episodes were longer than the Oceans movies. And somehow our Dark Knight episode was longer than the Dark Knight.
Ooh. Well, it depends who the guest is. If it's
short
somebody
movie.
that we are, like, chatting with a lot. So. All right. Let's kick it into gear, Dan.
That's right, Ian. Get chatty. If you want to hit 3 hours.
Well, now it's a challenge. I was going to say, you don't have to worry about that with me, but nope. Now
Please.
you're acting like I can't
Please.
do it.
I have work tomorrow, and it's already 10:30 here. I beg of you. Please.
Also at this party, we got Brad Pitt as the Jack Conrad, the big Hollywood star of the silent pictures. Nellie Leroy, Margot Robbie. She's an up-and-comer. She's going to be somebody. She's going to be a contender. She's an
so
actor.
gorgeous.
She does cocaine, and she dances. And we have Lee Jun-Lee as Lady Fei Zhu, a character that seems to only exist to prove that lesbians exist. I don't really know what her character role is for the rest of it.
Being hot.
Really? I would disagree that that's all she sort of does. Yeah, a big part is that it shows lesbians existed at the time, but it's sort of, I mean, not to get too ahead of things, but I think her story is, it just shows how, like, as the industry became what it was, it left some people behind as the studio system formed, and especially, like, the Hays Code came in. Like, people were sort of pushed away who used to have a place in this city and in this industry.
Yeah.
Which I guess is still tied to that, but that just seemed a little bit reductive.
Yeah, it was a reductive description. I just think that my issue with it is both her character and then Giovanna Depo's Sidney Palmer, the trumpeter. They're not given much characterization outside of they both seem to exist as plot conveniences more than actual characters.
I would agree with that.
I think that's fair. Because especially the beginning really frames them as they're going to be major characters, and then they don't really deliver on that. Like, we see what they go through, we see how the industry sort of chews them up and spits them out, and they both are the ones who choose to, like, leave, and they end up being happier after they leave, which I think is interesting compared to what happens with, like, Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie, but, like, still they don't get nearly as much characterization as they do.
Yeah. Much better way to word it than I did. So they need to get a drunk or dead girl out of this party. They use the elephant, distracts the partygoers. When we watched the scene, Anna was like, ugh, I wish I could have been there. I want to be one of the nude dancers in the background. And I'm like, what?
She's wild. I love
she
your
is
wife.
wild.
I mean, same. I want that. I want it to be the guy who paints himself gold and dances in like a banana hammock. And the whole time, I'd be so good at pretending there's an elephant there. Just looking at a tennis ball on a stick going, "Wow!" It'd be great. Sorry, I might have peaked the audio on that. You can fix it in post, right, Dan?
Absolutely.
I'll do another take. Wow! That's better. You could put that in there.
So after
You're
the
not
party,
editing any of that.
I'm not editing any of this out. This is all staying in.
No.
Peak the levels even more. Add some more. Just scream.
Classic Dan.
You couldn't see it, dear listener, but Ian just pantomimed screaming into the microphone.
Oh, that was me trying to eat the microphone. I'm sorry.
Oh.
That's a scream.
Well, if you're doing that, you got to add the sound. Oh.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim Allen.
The last time I was invited on the podcast.
So, Manny drives the drunk Jack Conrad, Brad Pitt, home, where he gets him a job at Kinescope, the silent film motion picture studio. The big one. It's Paramount. Don't know why they don't just call it Paramount. Don't know why they do all the not real character names in the movie either.
But they still reference Singing in the Rain. Because this movie is Singing in the Rain. Oh, I didn't want to wait anymore to say it. Okay, go on.
I like that there's so much fictionalized stuff in there because I feel like I remember reading like people's takes are like, oh, I don't think it's very historically accurate. And I think it kind of lets, which seems like a silly criticism because they do fictionalize so much. And it's like, because I remember actually early on, I think when I first saw the movie and one of the first scenes we discussed at length was the fat guy getting peed on. And then when the girl ODs, I was like, oh, is this supposed to be Fatty Arbuckle? And I said that to a friend who's just like, I don't think any of the people here are like real people. They're inspired by real figures. And I like that, I think, more than when people are so committed to making things real that like the story suffers or that they end up making up things to help the story. And I'm like, just make it inspired by real people. I think I like that.
Yeah. I like that
too. But
too.
I do see what you're saying when you're like, yeah, I do see what you're saying when it's like, oh yeah, this real studio, Kinescope, and the Warners just made the Jazz Singer, and then it's like real for a bit. I see what you're saying with that.
Like, go all the way with it. Don't have William Randolph Hearst and Marion Davies as characters. Make up fake names.
Yeah.
Billy Rudolph Herstute. I don't know.
Ooh, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's a good one.
I'm writing that down. Going to use that.
Write that down. Write that down.
That'll definitely work in another context.
Manny also has to run and get a camera when it breaks while they are filming a number of silent pictures throughout the day. There's a very long scene of silent film production going on. There's a big, major, like, medieval film starring Brad Pitt that's being filmed. There's a drunken, debaucherous comedy that Margot Robbie gets a role in because she's a pretty woman on set.
I loved this scene. I'm not going to lie. Sorry.
Yeah.
If you go on.
No, I think that the movie works best doing stuff like this. Mm-hmm. With this, and then the filming of the first one with sound.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some of the best scenes.
Yes,
sequences.
they are. Mm-hmm. They're so chaotic,
good.
but like in such a good way. You know.
I think anyone, I mean, I'm assuming here that people have seen it, but anyone who has seen this movie but then has had to work as like a runner in Hollywood thinks of themselves as Manny, who has to drive all the way to LA, get the camera. We got to get the shot before sunset. He steals an ambulance the whole time playing the big Barry sax number, Herman's Hustle, on the soundtrack. It's so good. I love it. And I did, like, after it, worked on a movie with some friends, and I was like, me and this other person, we were the runners for a lot of the time. Anytime something was intense, we put on that song from the Babylon soundtrack and book it in the car. It
love
makes
it.
everything more exciting, even if you're just picking up Chipotle for an actor. But like, you imagine that you're getting the last camera you need for the last shot.
Before sunset.
Yes. I feel like
Um,
even if you don't work in film, though, like, if you have a stressful day at work, that's what it feels like. I loved it.
Yes.
I do want to
just
point out
any anxiety.
that this episode of In Conclusion is sponsored by Stealing Ambulances.
Yes.
And if you love stealing ambulances, you'll love the new Sony film, Madam Web, now in theaters.
I thought you were gonna go with Michael Bay's Ambulance, but yeah, Madam Web. There's just a lot of great ambulance stealing movies out from the last couple of years.
Remember, our tax dollars pay for them. Legally, you can just take one.
Dan, we're gonna get put in jail if you say that.
Dan, don't you know in our world, knowing the future can't save you from it?
Dang.
Keep doing this.
Nellie can cry on command. Everybody is entranced by her. She is the it girl. She is the new silent star. You know what? I get it.
Really? Even with
100%.
Samara right there?
Hey, I love her.
I know.
I love those two being rivals, and I
Yeah.
remember being so mad when Margot Robbie and Samara Weaving were seen at like the SAG picket, and everyone's like, God, they need to do a movie together. I'm like, they did, and it was great.
Oh my
You
God.
all just didn't see it.
But change is coming in Hollywood. Like we alluded to before, the Warner Brothers, Jack, Harry, and the other one, Sam?
Sam's the one who actually did it, but go on.
Yeah.
I know too much, yeah.
Ian, you're the correct person to be correcting me on Warner Brothers history.
Aw, shucks.
As
I like being the correct person.
a credited producer on the documentary,
Associate producer, yeah.
associate producer of the Warner Brothers 100th anniversary documentary, you are legally required to correct me as many times as possible.
Honestly, I do have to admit that's a big part of why I love this movie, because it came out the year I did a lot of research into that era of Hollywood. I read so much about the 20s, the 30s, the invention of sound. So when the
Okay.
movie came out, I'm like, oh, this is the perfect time for me to get really into it. If it came out a year before, I don't know if it would have connected with me as much.
Well, that's kind of a sweet memory. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it is.
I love that.
I absolutely love the scene where Brad Pitt ends up sending Manny to New York to see the premiere of The Jazz Singer. The way he's there in the audience, distracted, because he's thinking about Nellie, which I get it, it's Margot Robbie, but everyone around him is losing their minds, and then he stands up and looks around and the camera swings as he sees people cheering in their seats, and you hear the first synchronized voice in a feature film. I think that whole thing is shot so well and really captures the moment of wow, this is history, this is a big moment.
100%. And I think that's such a good way to show it, too. He is the audience surrogate, because we're all thinking about Margot Robbie.
Yeah,
Even I am.
exactly.
Yeah. As a self-professed lover of women, that's what I'm thinking about throughout this scene. And then getting distracted by, why are all these people cheering? Why are they laughing? What's going on? Oh, cinema has changed forever?
As
I guess
a
I could
person with
stop
eyes,
thinking about her for a second.
One quick thing, and this is probably something you should cut out because I don't know if I should be talking about behind-the-scenes stuff on Warner Brothers. But it was very funny when, because we were trying to secure all the rights for all this stuff as the movie came out, and someone was talking to whoever is the head of Al Jolson's estate, and he's like, he usually just gives Warner whatever they want to use from The Jazz Singer because
Makes
it's a
sense.
Warner movie. But he was like, oh, can I have $60,000 again? And they were like, what? Someone just paid me $60,000 for it. I think it was Paramount. And everyone's like, this guy's insane. Why would Paramount Pictures pay him for the rights of The Jazz Singer? Why would they be
Right?
buying that? And I'm come up in the meeting. I'm like, oh, it's probably for Babylon. And like nobody knew what the movie was, so they just moved on. I'm like, that was definitely it. The Paramount paid to use that clip in the movie. The guy was confused. He's like, oh, I could just start asking for $60,000 when people want to use this movie? Sure. Somehow they worked it out and Warner didn't pay that. But everyone was just like, wow, this guy's senile. There's no way Paramount Pictures did anything with the jazz singer. I'm like, really? None of you saw Babylon?
Oh my god.
It's incredible that your entire experience working at Warner Brothers is no one saw Babylon? It keeps coming up.
It's defining.
It really kept
your career.
coming up. Like, well, one of the other things. No, we'll get to it later. That leads into other thoughts.
All right.
Yeah.
So Manny, he is in New York. He says everything is changing, and Nellie, despite being an it girl, she's got, a fucked up family life.
Yeah, sad.
She's got an institutionalized mom, very sad.
Mm-hmm.
She's got Eric Roberts as a dad. Just Eric Roberts playing.
I know.
Eric Roberts.
It's very sad.
He's a drunk who eventually loses all her money investing in a diner.
It's all gonna be Nelly themed. I'll put her face on sandwiches.
That was so cringe to listen to.
Somewhere, 70 years in the future, Steven Spielberg, Sylvester Stallone, and Ron Howard got the idea for Planet Hollywood from this scene. Was it Ron Howard?
I thought the question mark was, is Ron Howard exist in the Babylon universe?
I hope he
Hard
does.
to say.
He has to. You can't tell the story of Hollywood without the story of Ron Howard. Oh,
Got
no.
the story
it
of
was
a Dutch angle.
Stallone, Schwarzenegger, and Bruce Willis. I gave them too much credit.
Yeah, for some reason Ron Howard made more sense to me.
Yeah.
So they start working on making their first sound film, where Nellie is going to college. Hello, college.
Oh my god, she could not
Hello,
sound
college.
less enthused.
I do think that that's my favorite scene of any movie from 2022.
I did really enjoy
So
that
good.
scene. It was so funny.
That's one of the
way-
things that like gets to me is that I did read a book that for the documentary that really went into how much of a challenge shooting with sound was, and I think there was a line that literally said like people were honestly worried that people would die in the camera booth, and so the whole scene I'm like, oh, I know what this movie's capable of. They're gonna make the guy fucking die, and he did.
Oh.
Great button to the scene.
Also, we are then introduced to Jeff Garland.
The scream I scrumped. Are you kidding?
I scrumped throughout the film.
Yes.
Jeff Garland playing a studio executive who matters not at all. He has like 3 lines, but he's just like a jump scare whenever he pops up on screen.
He's like not a fun curmudgeon.
That
It
man
was around.
did not exist before the 90s.
A curmudgeon?
Just Jeff Garland just doesn't look right in a period piece.
Well, I only ever see him in the
But it works.
Goldbergs, so and I love the Goldies, so that's what we call it.
I
at
think
our house.
right before this movie came out is when I watched through all of Curb Your Enthusiasm. So it was like a week after I had seen the scene where someone at a party thinks he's Harvey Weinstein and smacks the shit out of him. And so when he shows up as an executive, I'm like, great casting.
Oh my god.
So Hollywood is changing, and it's different. And speaking of Hollywood changing, Manny has to fire Faye, the previously mentioned lesbian in the movie, because she is having an affair with Nellie, and that is not allowed in the newly much more conservative Hollywood, which I understand, but it's still to the point that I mentioned earlier, where she is more of a... She's less of a character, more of a emotional convenience for Manny more than anything. Because it's not like her getting fired has that much of an effect on Nellie. There's a brief scene after she wrestles the snake.
Oh my god, I hated that scene.
Where they have a connection, but other than that, it's more of like, oh, will Manny do this or will he not do this? Will he stand up with his morals? It's never really like, well, how does she feel about this?
Yeah.
One thing that's interesting, I watched some of the deleted scenes from it.
You watched
and
more Babylon?
Yes.
When
I was
Babylon
like, 3 hours and 9 minutes? I wish it were 10 minutes longer.
Oh my god.
And most of the scenes, I'm like, yeah, you could cut. But there was one that, like, I thought was interesting. It's like, it's in that sort of sequence when Manny's becoming, like, a big shot at the studio and he's bossing people around and he's starting to, lose himself in a way and make some decisions. You're like, really? And, like, this is a scene where, like, Nellie's, like, not ready to get on set. He, like, goes into her trailer to, like, yell at her. And they have just, like, this crazy fight that, like, honestly made me uncomfortable. Like, it was that tense. I'm like, oh, interesting that they cut it out. But, like, in that fight, she's upset because he fired
Lady Faye.
Lady Faye. And then she also says that, like, Ruth, the director that she really connected with, she's like, I haven't seen her, and Manny says I fired her too, and, like, that, like, breaks Nellie, and she's so mad at Manny. And, like, it's interesting that they cut it out. I think the movie works without it, but seeing it again, I'm like, oh, this feels, like, really important. But it was just sad. Like, mom and dad are fighting.
Yeah, I feel that I'm not arguing for lengthening this movie, but that does kind of feel necessary emotionally.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I feel like their relationship felt kind of, like, weird to me, and I feel like it would have made a little bit more sense if we saw some of that on the screen. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, yeah.
It felt a little, watching it, like, oh, there are scenes of them getting to know each other and growing closer together that we're not seeing, right?
Yes.
There have to be.
Yeah, that's kind of... Yeah.
Also, I like to think of this as a remake of Garden State. Just the level of manic pixie dream girl going on.
It's definitely giving Singing in the Rain, Dan. Edgy Singing in the Rain.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. It is kind of like Singing in the Rain. I was definitely thinking Garden State, but...
Singing in the Rain with more drugs.
It just really feels like a guy who's only seen Garden State. Getting a lot of Garden State vibes from this.
Oh.
I don't know why the soundtrack of Babylon didn't have anything by the Shins on it. It seems like that's kind of like a necessity for movies.
Could you imagine? Just like a verse from the Shins on Voodoo Mama would fucking slap.
Incredible. I almost filed for divorce after watching this movie.
Oh,
because
great.
I turned to my wife, Anna, who I love, who Anna also loves.
I do.
And I was like, after the end of the movie and everything, I was like, at what point did you realize that this is just Singing in the Rain?
Yes.
And she went, I haven't seen Singing in the Rain.
Oh, I would have supported your divorce, Dan.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. I can't believe she's
I don't know how I
this
married
long.
her, right?
Dang. Do you even know her?
We gotta do a big screening. I'll watch Singing in the Rain again. I watched it like, I guess like a month ago, and I was like, it's still good. That's one of those movies I watched a lot as a kid, and I didn't realize until I watched it as an adult. I'm like, why do I know all of these lines? It's just a random thing for a 6-year-old to be really into. But
hey,
it's also
a 6-year-old with taste.
You watch it a lot as a kid, and you're like, oh my god, the dancing, the singing, the bright colors, it's so fun. And then you watch it as an adult, and you're like, yeah, I was right. It is really
singing,
good.
It is.
The bright
That's how
colors.
I feel about Bye Bye Birdie.
I nailed it.
Yes.
I'm not going to say those are on equal levels, but...
Hey, you watch your mouth. You know I like Bye Bye Birdie.
So, Manny and Eleanor, who is the gossip colonist, who is kind of the through line throughout the movie.
Yeah.
We see the movie both through her eyes, but mostly through Manny's eyes. They try to get Nellie to be more high society, more highfalutin. Ooh la
I
la.
hated this part because it just made me sad.
So they
that they
take
were
her to a
Sorry.
big, wealthy Hollywood party hosted by William Randolph Hearst and Marion Davies. Chloe Feynman of SNL Jump Scare, by the way.
What
playing
was
Marion Davies.
Gage loves her. I didn't see her. I don't recognize anyone ever, apparently. Don't mind me not recognizing anyone.
You
She
didn't
popped
even
up.
know Flea.
Yeah.
Didn't. I'm sorry. I'm surprised I even recognized oh
Brad
my
Pitt?
God. What?
Margot
Tobey
Robbie.
Maguire.
Yeah, both, honestly. Oh.
Lucas Haas.
Whomst?
Lucas Haas, George Munn, studio executive.
Okay.
Um,
I just was enjoying the movie, okay? I was immersing myself.
you were vibing.
I was.
Oops, all vibes.
High vibes and misdemeanors.
No misdemeanors. I was just watching a movie and enjoying
Oops,
some...
all misdemeanors.
No!
So Nellie tries to fit in, but she is getting both sexually assaulted and class assaulted at the same time.
It just felt like everybody... I mean, I know they all were judging her anyway, but it just made me sad that she couldn't be herself.
Yeah, so she lashes out and projectile vomits on William Randolph Hearst.
That was kind of iconic, if I'm being honest.
Longer than I would think that anybody has the ability to vomit for.
I would agree,
She's just
and I
built
hate
different.
vomit.
That's why she's the it girl.
She
You
like
can cry
vomited.
command,
Vomit like
vomit
that?
too.
It was like her entire body weight.
Vomit girl.
Oh, gross.
Boo.
But
Yeah.
do you remember when a clip from that scene was going around Twitter and people are like, God, this is so bad. Margot Robbie really fell off. And it's just because people were passing around a clip from Amsterdam from the same year being like, wow, Margot Robbie's in these two awful movies. One, I think the Amsterdam clip was so much worse. Two, every time I see that, I'm like, I don't think Margot Robbie's acting is bad.
No, it's
like,
really
No,
good. Her acting's
yeah.
really good throughout this entire movie.
I agree.
And like I thought of how people were shitting on that clip watching the movie I watched it yesterday. And it especially made me mad. One, she's good in that scene. I don't know what people were talking about. But what stood out to me is the scene right after she visits her mom in the mental institution. She's in the car with Manny and she just keeps ranting. She's so just emotional and upset and she's focusing on all these other things. The acting's so good. That's such a real moment. And I'm just like, how dare these people see one clip and decide her performance is bad and the movie is bad? Because she is so good in this movie. She's over the top, but so down to earth when she needs to be. I hot take. I'm a big Margot Robbie fan. I know
That's
it's controversial.
Such a scalding take, Ian. Dang.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
How are you so brave?
Yeah. Saying that in
Someone
the
had
year
to
of our
say
Lord,
it.
2024.
She's also very attractive and talented. Yep, I said it.
Oh my god. My pearls, consider them clutched. I'm shook. Again.
The word hero is thrown around a lot these days, but I think it really describes you right now.
You're so
I was
brave.
thinking the same thing. Thank you, Dave.
You are so brave, Ian. You're so brave.
No, Margot Robbie is really good in this.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I
didn't
don't have
think-
any issues with performances in this. I think that
Yes.
the movie's too self-indulgent more than
That's what I was
anything.
going to say. I thought the performances were great from everyone.
Even Rory Scovel.
You're going to have to stop saying people I don't know.
He's the count, the guy that's handing out drugs the
Thank
entire
you.
time.
Thank you.
Oh,
You should have
yeah.
just said the count.
Who is
In order, because I knew it would come to this, I brought up, I Googled the cast so I have everyone's face and their names and character names
I gotta
so I
do
can
that.
follow along. And I gotta say, they have like everyone's character name except Diego Calva. They're like, who knows who he plays? I'm like, he's Manny.
He's like the lead.
Google is just bad now. Google is not good anymore.
Dang.
So also a big change in Hollywood, or not really a big change, racism. It's actually not a big change at all. That was a poor transition.
That's why I'm laughing. That was so awkward. Anyway.
Sydney gets a lead in a movie with his band. But in order to appeal to Southern audiences, the studio executives need him to... He's not dark enough, apparently, so they need him to put on blackface to look like a minstrel character.
This part also made me sad. This movie I really enjoyed, but it made me sad a lot, I'm coming to realize.
That's showbiz, baby.
I guess that is. Man, the real horrors.
Yeah, this
are
scene
the
is
truth, I guess.
one of the harder to watch ones. I know people who, like, their main problem with the movie is how much of a bad taste in their mouth this scene left them, and I can't argue with that. It is a hard to watch scene, and it's one of those that's like, it's meant to be uncomfortable. It absolutely has the effect that they're going for, but if it's too much for someone, I can't tell you you're wrong about that.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's fair to not like the movie because of this, even though that's what they're going for. And it's like, it's rough, and it just shows how, like, far gone Manny is sort of at that point once he sort of becomes successful, and like how much, because like even the scene, in the scene, I guess we have to describe it more. Manny is the one who brought Sydney up with him, and the studio executives are like, you need to convince Manny to darken his skin for this scene. He comes over to says that of course Sydney doesn't like it, and he has to like guilt him in. He's like, the production shuts down if you don't do this. Everyone here is going to lose their jobs.
All these people need to feed their families.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, I think the movie is good at, the movie is good at, like, showing how it's all a system sort of based on exploitation. And how people in a position like Sydney's, they have to do things like that because so much is riding on the production, even though he was like against it from the beginning. And you see, even after he does it, he packs up his things and leaves LA, never looks back. It's a tough scene.
It is, and it works really well. It does hit on the same issue that I have with Lady Faye's character. Sydney is slightly more fleshed out. We see slightly more of him as a character, but it's less of it's a plot point more than a character.
I almost wish, like, this movie has so many characters. There are so many characters that sometimes I feel like some of them, like, I don't know, I feel like in some ways maybe some of the characters could have been combined. Like, could that actor have been a woman who also, you know, not only was black, but was also lesbian and was dating
Margot Robbie.
Nelly, or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, just to tighten things up a little bit.
The movie would just pile on that one character.
Sorry, one character. You have every plight now. No, but you know what I mean? Like, there's just a few characters where I'm like, oh my god, there's so many people. And maybe that's just me being, you know, wishing for a tight 90, like I said. But
yeah, it's definitely, it feels silly to be like, I wish there was more of that in a movie that's already so long, like, to a fault. But it just...
I think it needs to either be shorter... It needs to be shorter or longer.
Well, and hot take, I know Brad Pitt's character is kind of what everything stems on. He could have been combined into someone else too, or something.
That's right. Him and Chloe Fineman.
Yes, done. No, but you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like sometimes... So, I just watched a movie based off of a book that I read, and while I was kind of annoyed that they combined a lot of characters to make the movie shorter, I get it. So that's kind of where my brain is at right now. I don't know.
Was it The Zone of Interest?
No, it was Red, White, and Royal Blue. It was a romance.
Oh my god.
Shut up! I loved it! I cried.
You know that's based on a fan fiction from The Social Network?
And I'm gonna keep reading it, okay? I gobbled that fan fiction down.
It's supposed to be Mark Zuckerberg and Andrew Garfield.
Well, you know what? Tough. I liked this version, okay? I devoured it, Dan, and I am proud to admit. A little
Proud?
ashamed, slightly ashamed,
There we go.
but not very ashamed. I read literature, Dan.
Okay, let's keep going. Let's make this podcast both shorter and longer. So Jack talks to Lady Faye at a hotel where she is leaving for Europe, where she could have more success with their film studios there. He also has a conversation with Eleanor St. John about how movies live on forever. It's the big Oscar speech that plays. They will play that speech over every film history thing ever. You dance with ghosts and see the stars and a bunch of other things she says. It's a good speech. That's about my whole point with that. Then Brad Pitt kills himself.
That was, yep, a thing that happened. I was really sad. His friend, George, who was always, like, losing his mind over every lady in town. When
That's
he
Lucas
died.
Haas, baby.
What'd you say?
That's Lucas Haas, Leonardo DiCaprio's good friend.
When he died, that did make me sad, and it made me sad for Brad Pitt's character. And then when he died, I was sad again. I was sad a lot, but I like being sad when I watch movies, apparently.
I really like Brad Pitt in this movie. I think he's great. I think it's a great role for him. Like how people say he has the face of a leading man, but he's a character actor because he gets to be handsome, but also just be crazy and not carry the movie. And
Yeah.
I think he's so good in that. But I also love his arc and his moments. Like when he finds out that his friend George killed himself, and he gets upset and lashes out on his wife at something completely different, but then the thing that's bothering him about how the movies matter and how it's not a low art form, I love that. And the scene, like, when he talks to Lady Faye right before he kills himself, it's a sad scene, but it's like, I think he adds some depth to it. Like, he's Mr. Hollywood, he's the big shot, he thrives in this sort of, like, superficial world, but you could tell he really loves genuine people. Like, he loves talking to Manny, and he really likes Lady Faye, and I like seeing that side of him. I feel like he brings that to it that I really like, and I think I had another point, and I don't remember what it was.
Well, I'm just thinking, like, saying what I was saying before, and I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but again, I feel like he didn't need to be in the movie as much as he was. But that's
Fair.
just, yeah. Like,
And
they're
he's
just...
Brad Pitt, so
Yeah.
that's why there's so much of him.
Absolutely. I think just looking at it from a, tightening things up standpoint, that's why I'm like, we could have combined these and cut this and done this, but that's just my preference. I liked the movie. I'm not saying I didn't. I'm just saying.
No, you're definitely right. He's something that, yeah. The other point I was going to say, rewatching it after knowing where it goes kind of makes his whole story a little bit sadder, because it's like he is sort of someone who is left behind with the changing times. He couldn't adapt. The industry left him behind. But when you see him, like in the opening, he really cares about pushing the art form forward. He really saw it as, oh, we're innovating. It's the future. We got to move forward. And it's very sad knowing he is ultimately left behind by the forward passage of time.
Yeah.
I'm getting sad just
love
thinking about this movie again.
Yeah.
Well, don't worry. We're past the sad parts now. Now it just gets fucking weird.
Yes.
Introducing
I
Tobey
hated-
Maguire.
I hated that character. He was so icky. Oh
I
my
gotta
god.
say, there was something crazy about seeing it for the first time, because it came out the same winter as Spider-Man No Way Home, where everyone was so hyped for Tobey Maguire, and he is giving his, like, 60% effort. He is there to get a check. And
Yes.
I'm like, oh, he was a little more enthusiastic than I expected. Then I saw Babylon. I'm like, oh, he wants to be here. He's loving this. This is what he wants to do. And I remember, I think he wanted to promote Babylon, so he did a Ask Me Anything on Reddit, and everyone kept asking us about Spider-Man, and he never got to talk about Babylon.
Oh, poor Tobes.
But you could tell he really wanted to.
Fun fact, in the background of some of our engagement photos, the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire is in fact playing, so you can see some clips of Tobes and our good friend
I'm gonna
Willem
go back
Dafoe.
and find it. Love
Incredible.
That.
Tobey
Are they
Maguire,
invited to the wedding? Your good friend Willem.
Yes, you better
Wisconsin's
be there.
finest, Appleton's
Yeah.
finest.
Appleton sweetheart.
Tobey Maguire plays gangster James McKay, who Nellie is greatly indebted to. And Manny figures out a way to get money from the Count, Rory Scovel, who is a stand-up comedian and is not really
Oh, you're
acting
frozen.
in this movie.
Or am I frozen?
You're frozen, Ian.
You're
I'm
frozen?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me? I
Yes.
can hear you now.
Okay.
Great. What I was going to say is, I remember, like, maybe a year or two before this came out, there was an announcement about Babylon, or when they brought Tobey Maguire on, but all it said was, like, Tobey Maguire to play Charlie Chaplin in a 1920s Hollywood period piece. And so the whole time I'm like, oh, he's Charlie Chaplin. I can't wait to see where this is going. And I'm watching the movie like, this is a weird take for Charlie Chaplin. What are they doing? And I like turned to my friend who's like, no, he's not supposed to be Charlie Chaplin. I don't know where you heard that. And I thought I imagined it because he's absolutely not Charlie Chaplin in this movie. I looked it up. You can still find the press release. They said he plays Charlie Chaplin in Babylon. So I'm not crazy. That was just wrong.
Oh,
That's incredible.
interesting.
So they have money to give him. It's counterfeit money made by the prop master.
Counterfeit.
The way I screamed.
Yeah, but
he
don't
makes
worry.
the money.
That was funny. I thought that was fun. That worked for me. They don't have these big, lavish Hollywood parties anymore. No, everything's in the sewers. Everything's in the gutter. They have to go deep into the underworld to have the real fun, where you have gimp parties.
I
And
hated this. I hated this, but like in an enjoyable way. You know what I'm saying? Like it gave me
watch
the ick.
professional wrestlers eat live mice.
I hated it, Dan.
And
could make a
Ethan
whole movie
Suplee
around
spits
this
a
guy.
lot. I'd watch it. I'd watch that movie. I don't really know what the plot would be. Mouse Man?
I had to close my eyes. Gage closed his eyes during the snake scene and had to leave the room because he's really scared of snakes. And I had to close my eyes during this scene just because it was so icky.
Icky is a great word for it.
Thank
It
you.
is very icky.
Each room they went down made me more uncomfortable than the last.
And it's supposed to be
Manny's
representative of
Man's
them descending into hell, and also representative of this is the same thing as what Hollywood does. It's just exploitation. Exploitation?
Exploitation, Dan?
Exploitation.
There you go.
Exploitation.
In different forms, and everybody's being exploited for their money and their talent.
My eyes were exploited. So I
Explosion.
had to watch that, yeah.
Exploited.
So they realize that the money is counterfeit. Manny barely escapes. The Count gets killed by one of Tobey Maguire's associates, who tells Manny to run and never come back.
Oh, this scene was crazy.
We also see the Count's headshots. Pretty good headshots. And then Manny and Nellie are going to flee to Mexico, start a new life. Eventually she agrees.
Which, okay, did this
barely
feel...
agrees.
Yeah, did this feel like... When she agreed, Gage and I were discussing this, and maybe it's obvious and I'm just thinking I'm making some big point. It just feels like she just loves being loved. Like, I think she truly had feelings for Faye, but when she agrees to this, it feels like she just loves the idea of somebody taking care of her and loving her. And I
Yeah,
know...
But I also don't know if she ever intended to do that. I think she always thought she'd leave Manny behind.
Oh, absolutely. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, when she's like, yes, like, I think she's so manic that she kind of doesn't think before she does stuff. She just kind of says what she feels in the moment, and then when she's like, wait, this isn't what I want.
100%.
Yeah, that's when she got up and left.
That scene always makes me think of this moment in the first episode of Rick and Morty.
Oh my
when
God.
Morty's dad is like, and Beth, if you will have me, I would love to have you. And she's like, you know what? Sure.
That's the same energy, yes.
It's the same thing.
Oh my God.
One of the things I love about that scene is that I think the movie does so many, like, little nods to things earlier, little things that keep coming back. I love when he's saying, te amo, te amo, te amo, just repeating it. It's so sincere from him, but it's so similar to Jack's movie where he goes, I love you, I love you, I love you, and everyone laughs. And I think it's a fun little parallel. But watching it again, that happens a few times. Like when he first brings the camera and they get the shot, the director hugs him and goes, I love you, I love you, I love you. Like it comes up throughout the movie if you look through it. And I think it's so good.
I like that.
History
but it
echoes.
also just sort of undercuts the emotionality of that scene with Manny. Because like in that moment, he's being sincere. But like it's a parallel to all these moments of like people laughing at it and it like not being a real... It's not a real love scene. It's not a real love story.
Yeah.
Even though in the moment he thinks it is.
Yeah.
Then Nellie disappears into the night in Los Angeles, dancing away.
Okay.
A dream we all
Happily
aspire
ever
to.
after.
Nellie gave me some of the same energy as like her Harley Quinn. And this is one of the times where I kind of felt that. What do you guys think?
I see it.
It's
Same
the
voice.
accent.
Yeah.
I think so. I think it was the accent, the kind of like ditzy-ish high pitch. Yeah.
I got an awful lot of Natalie Portman in Garden State vibes.
Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Dan, you always get a lot of Natalie Portman and Garden State vibes.
100%. Anytime I see a woman.
I mean, fair.
Getting
Natalie
a lot
Portman
of
is
garden
also
vibes
incredibly
from this.
beautiful. Hot take. Natalie Portman is also very beautiful, so.
100%.
Wow. I guess you're right.
I know. Can you believe?
The
Thank
two
you.
of you coming out with these scalding hot takes.
Ian, I only
Margot
said my
Robbie,
piece
Natalie
because you were
Portman.
so brave before. I felt inspired.
I tend to inspire people. I get it.
I don't feel
You
I
know
don't
me.
feel brave or confident enough to have my scalding hot Kate Blanchett take, so I'll keep that one to myself.
Yeah.
It's okay,
that's what I
Dan.
thought.
Take your time.
Here's a hint. I love women. I love
Wow.
Kate Blanchett.
Yes.
I think I see where this is going.
Anyway,
I'm really
we
good
then,
at picking up on things.
we then get a montage of newspaper clippings. Eleanor dies at 76. Nellie dies from a drug overdose at 34.
Very sad.
Rip. Flash forward. It's 1952. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is for some reason on a bus shelter ad in the background as they get off of the bus.
Wait, what? I totally missed that.
It's the
I
corner
haven't seen
of
the
a Sonic
Sonic
the
one,
Hedgehog poster.
Oh my
I know
God.
if you look at the trees, you can see the corner of the Jackass Forever billboard.
Yeah.
Stop. Oh my God.
That one's harder to tell because the billboard itself is a blue sky and it's on a blue sky, but someone on Twitter pointed it out and I look for it every time. I'm like, there's Jackass!
That's so funny. Oh my God.
But Manny comes back to California for the first time with his wife and little daughter.
Beautiful family. Beautiful family. Good for him. That's what he
Beautiful family.
wanted.
He's got a beautiful life going on, runs a camera shop or a radio shop in New York City.
New York.
His daughter is bored, so... Because why would you care? Oh, my dad worked here before I was born?
Great.
He didn't exist before I was born.
Dad, where's Paramount Pictures? I don't care about Kinescope.
They leave, so then he's alone, and he goes to see Singing in the Rain
As he
at a
should.
theater.
because he lived it.
Anna could learn something. Not you, Anna.
Oh, I was like, what? What can I learn? Please, Ian, please tell me.
So he sees Singing in the Rain. It is a comedic dramatization of his experience in cinema, basically. He is moved to tears. And then we get a montage of film history.
Loved
as
it.
He watches it.
I love that scene. It's so... Okay, I love the scene where he's watching the movie. He first starts crying. The camera gets up and moves through the theater, and you see everyone else watching the movie and having a wildly different experience.
Yes.
And how it just visually shows that everyone has different experiences with art, but then will also think of that movie in different ways. It makes him think of his past, and he gets sad. Then you see this couple like making out. That's going to be a memory for them. Then this other girl that's just completely enthralled. It's like her new favorite movie. And I love that because it reminds me of the jazz singer scene, just in that it's a sweeping camera movement through a big theater. But I think it just visually kind of shows a lot of what the movie's thinking about. Like, well, because I think the movie has a lot of themes, obviously. It like talks about Hollywood and the system that creates these movies, but it goes back to like what we love about movies, why we love it, and then obviously gets into the big montage, which that's one, when we talk about how much I love the movie, I hated that montage of film history the first time I saw it.
Oh,
I'm
you
like,
did?
Really?
I'm like, what the fuck are they doing? Just end it already. And like watching it now, I'm back to the opinion of, this is so self-indulgent. What the fuck? Yeah, keep going. Like that's how I've come around to the movie. But the first time I'm like, we get it. We got it 5 minutes ago. Why are you still going? But like, I still sort of appreciate it in that it makes you think that like the stories we saw of like the struggle and like some of the exploitation that's happened for like so many of your favorite movies. I think it's very intentional that it shows like Kubrick films and James Cameron, who are like famously hard to work with, but like you see T2 and Avatar. I think you see Titanic in there, but The Shining, which are all these great movies, very beloved, but also have these horror stories about how much of a nightmare it was to work on it.
Yeah.
I remember watching it the first time being like, oh God, are they going to show the Avengers? They didn't. I'm like, Avatar works. I'll take that.
Oh my God.
I love montages, so the more montages you can throw on into a movie, the better. Especially montages of movies. I think that I liked it when I first saw it, even though it was already 3 hours in, and I was also like, end it. And I think that it really works because of the ways that you can read it as an audience member too. Because like Manny applauds when Singing in the Rain ends, and he's like, and the way that I read that was, even though he went through basically destroying his life for this, it's like the magic of the movies, or there's something about it that will draw him back in, and in spite of everything, still you connect with it, you relate to it, you resonate with it. And that's what the montage is doing for the audience too. It's like all of these things throughout time you may have seen or you may not have seen, but you have some sort of emotional reaction to it. The way that my brother read it, which he told me about afterwards, well, I got a text from him out of the blue that went, I just saw Babylon. Either Damian Chazelle hates his audience or thinks that they're the dumbest people in the world. Because the way that he read the montage was, you saw all the horrible shit that they went through to make this. And all that horrible shit happened on all of this stuff that you love too. And you still watch it. You still like it. You still follow it. You're just
so
as complicit as everybody else.
That's so pessimistic.
Did he just watch the movie Vice?
Which brother was this?
Like, it's the same tone. You, the audience, are to blame.
Yeah.
Please, I'm just here for the vibes. Please.
And then the movie ends. Babylon, it's Babylon. Manny smiles at the end of Singing in the Rain.
Mm-hmm. As do I.
We all smile at yeah.
We all smile. That's Babylon, baby.
Okay, I have a
Babylon,
dumb
baby.
question to ask. Why is it called
Okay.
Babylon? I don't think I ever caught that.
It is so a couple of reasons. The biblical Babylon, like the debauchery and then the fall. And then also there is a book that came out in the late 60s called Hollywood Babylon by Kenneth Anger, which is all about scandal in Hollywood from the
tea.
beginning of the industry until the 50s.
Okay.
And how much of that book is true? But it is the like scandal tome of early Hollywood.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you. I was just curious.
It's also because Ryan Murphy already took the name Hollywood for his non-musical Netflix series, Ryan Murphy's Hollywood.
Ryan, please.
That did come out, didn't it?
It did.
I forgot
I
about
watched it.
I thought he was
Was
in
it good?
trouble for still filming
No.
American Horror Story during the strike.
That was before that.
Oh, my bad. I thought
I
you
So
meant...
still
that's
lived
back
in
when
Milwaukee.
people just found him annoying.
Yeah. I have a bunch of trivia about Babylon.
Let's
We're
hear
not
it.
going to go
Go.
over all of it.
All right.
One quick thing, I thought I would bring this
yes.
up earlier. It didn't come through naturally, but watching it again, I had the thought when Nellie first meets the director Ruth, and they really connect, and like she's sort of her muse. I thought, God, what if they got Greta Gerwig to play Ruth? That would have
Oh my
been so great.
Dan, before
That
you do the
would've been
trivia, I just want to take a
Yes.
moment to let our listeners know
cough.
that, yes, that Ian's dog is being really cute right now, and I can't take my eyes off of him. He got off the couch. It was very cute. I just wanted everybody to know he was laying with his head on a pillow like a human, and I thought I was going to die if I didn't say something. So, okay, thank you. Let's carry on.
This episode of In Conclusion is brought to you by the auditory medium of podcasting.
That's why
You'll
I'm
never
describing
see it. Just know that it's cute.
You're all missing out. Milo is being
are.
so adorable.
He is, and my heart is literally skipping beats. Okay, anyway.
So, trivia.
Yes.
The director, Olivia Hamilton, again, Damian Chazelle's wife. She played the Hollywood star in La La Land.
Nice.
Diego Calva was a PA on the set of a commercial that Damian Chazelle directed as a form of method acting to get a sense of how to play a PA. But then the costume
fun.
designer introduced him to Brad Pitt, who was in the commercial, who was very confused.
Oh, Brad. Brad. Do you think Brad Pitt's a himbo, be honest?
Yeah.
I love a
He was
good
a-
himbo. I just was curious what the
I
consensus
think there was an anger underneath.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
Himbos tend to be a little gentler, more of a Kronk.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, like a Kronk
He's
situation.
the platonic ideal of a himbo.
The ideal man, truly.
Diego Calva dubbed his own role for the Latin American Spanish dub of the film.
Nice.
There was a 2019 script that leaked before the movie came out that has a ton of changes from the original movie. The characters were not fictional. They were real characters. So it was Clara Bow, Anna Mae Wong, Eric von Stroheim, Eleanor Glynn, and Colleen Moore.
Wait, so they are... Okay.
They're inspired. In the finished film, they're inspired by...
Yeah. I'm just thinking how, like, if they had been real people... Okay. Sorry, I'm just thinking to myself about my own critiques, so don't mind me.
The original script was more graphic. There was a scene where Manny gets high on mescaline, has sex with Clara, and hallucinates hundreds of chickens fornicating alongside them as well.
Oh, I don't
he also
like
sees
that.
2 statues jerking each other off.
I don't like that. That's a lot to unpack.
Sydney was a more fleshed out character and had a love interest.
Where was that storyline?
Yeah, I thought these were all going to be terrible ideas, and I'm like, glad they didn't do that. And I'm like, wait, that sounds good. Okay.
Sydney, okay, let's say I'm back to square one. Now I'm cutting down Brad Pitt's part, and I would love to have seen more of a storyline for Sydney then, because that could have been very beautiful. Don't take away people's love interests. Me crying because I just watched a romance movie last night.
Manny and Clara was not going to be a will they or won't they. They would have sex twice, once on screen, the previously mentioned chickens. They're a couple much earlier in the movie, instead of him confessing his love for her with the Te Amo. They're just together earlier.
Quick thing. Let's cut this out if this doesn't go anywhere. But do you guys know the song Versace by Migos?
Do not.
I've heard it. I don't know it well.
Damn, okay,
Unfortunately,
yeah,
I'm not. Yeah.
I've always thought the way that he says "te amo, te amo, te amo" sounds exactly like the flow of Versace. And I've
okay,
always
I'm gonna have
thought
to do a listen.
It would be very fun to do a mix of that, but anytime I tell people, I haven't met anyone who is in the Babylon Hive and a fan of Migos. I have not found anyone who this is funny to. And
I'm sure it's out
like
there.
Ready to make the mix at any time, but I have not found anyone else in the world who enjoys it like I do.
I'm sorry.
Be the change.
I'm more of a ladies of rap kind of person myself. I'm so sorry.
Well, I'll cut it together and send it to you. You can put it in the episode, and hopefully one of your listeners will like it. I've just never found someone who likes Babylon and Migos. I still have not.
These are 2 totally separate circles. So in the original epilogue, Manny does not have a wife or daughter. He runs a used car shop, and he goes to Nellie's old house before going to the theater instead of going to the studio.
No.
Depressing.
I like this one better. He deserved a happy ending, I think, with a nice family.
And then Emma Stone was originally cast to play Clara Bow, and then dropped out, and then Margot Robbie was cast and became Nellie.
I was talking today about Emma Stone. Once again, I have no beef with her, but I just think it was better suited for Margot Robbie. I don't think I can picture Emma Stone in this role at all.
I like Emma Stone in general, but this is completely Margot Robbie's character. I think it was perfect for her, and she was honestly, like, in like the last few years, there have been a lot of movies that originally had Emma Stone, and it's like they're good. Like, she was originally going to be Anya Taylor-Joy in The Menu, and I think Anya Taylor-Joy is so good in that.
Oh, she was so good.
I think she was going to be in Little Women, but Emma Watson took that role, and I'm like, all of these other second choices are very good. Like, they nailed it.
I'm literally shook every time you say what movie she's supposed to be in, or was supposed to be in. I
like Emma Stone. I think she's very good, but in all of these, I'm like, they made the right choice. And Emma Stone got to do Poor Things, which I think was correct. She was great.
Yeah, she made sense in that movie.
You know that she was originally supposed to be in The Iron Claw?
Really?
As the Zac Efron role?
No, as Jeremy Allen White.
Ooh.
Oh, I could see that one. That makes more sense.
She was ready to amputate her foot. Spoilers.
Oh, Dan.
It's so wild that Jeremy did that and he had to put it back on for the bear.
Right?
Like, they could have faked it, but I appreciate
He's method.
He is
tough in these streets. Gotta stay competitive, you know? How dedicated
Ian,
are you?
Would Babylon be better, worse, or the same if Brad Pitt's role was played by Philip Seymour Hoffman?
Oh, this is why you asked me my favorite actor before. God, great question. I think Brad Pitt is very good in this role. I'd be interested to see what Philip Seymour Hoffman would do, what he would do differently, what he would bring to it, but I can't imagine anyone else as Jack Conrad.
Yeah. I can imagine some people, like, not of this time people as Jack Conrad, but I can imagine old Hollywood people playing him.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Cary Grant would kill it.
Oh, 100%. Anna, of a similar level, would this be better, worse, or the same with Jonathan Taylor Thomas as Manny?
I knew you were going to say that. First of all, it doesn't make sense. The plot would have to change. Second of all,
Explicitly Mexican character Manny.
yeah, that
played
doesn't
by
feel...
extremely white Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
I'm just going to be crazy here and say that doesn't feel right. Also, you know, jokes aside, there's not a place for him in this movie. It's too edgy. He's not edgy enough.
He is not. He is rounded corners.
Truly a circle.
All right,
and I also
Dan.
feel like this
Sorry, no,
movie
you
was
finish.
No, you're good. You're good. Sorry, Ian. I was just gonna say I feel like this movie is pretty perfectly cast all around. Like there's not anybody that I would be like, ugh, I wish I had seen somebody else in this role.
There's one role for me.
Oh.
Just when Jeff Garland shows up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot. I already blocked him out. What were you saying,
Dan,
Ian?
would this movie be better or worse with Cate Blanchett as Nellie Leroy?
We're mixing it up.
Okay.
I love this, Ian.
I like
yes,
it.
This
I
energy
was ready to do a whole quote with Jimmy Stewart.
as the count, right?
Yeah. No, he makes the money. It's the money he makes. Cate Blanchett, current Cate Blanchett, or like 20 years ago Cate Blanchett?
Let's say 20 years ago. Or when
Okay.
she's the same age as Margot Robbie.
Yeah, so that would be interesting. I don't know if she can... She always is too put together of a performer, I think, to pull off. I mean, she could do it. She's so incredibly talented of an actor, but I think that there's always just this air that, like, oh, she's put together. She knows what she's doing.
You look at her and it's like, they'd like her at the fancy party. Like,
yeah.
she would fit in too well there.
So I think it would be worse, but I think it would be better if it was the character of Lydia Tarr playing Nellie Leroy.
Okay.
And I mean, current 50-something Cate Blanchett playing Lydia Tarr, playing 20-something Nellie Leroy.
And then Jack Conrad can be Brad Pitt's character from Bullet Train. I'm seeing the vision now. Great idea,
You cannot
Dan.
cry
I'll quote you
without
on this.
me. Thank you. I can't do a Cate Blanchett impression. I'm sorry.
That's
I can
fine.
barely do a
I
Jimmy
was not
Stewart one.
I was not expecting you to have a Cate Blanchett impression.
I was.
But Ian, on a scale of 1 to 5, fully opened elephant anuses, what do you
Oh
give
my
this?
god, ew, Dan.
Sorry.
4.5
Repulsed.
anuses for me.
4.5. Anna?
I was gonna say 4 anuses. Dan.
I am 3. 3 ani.
Mid ani.
Yeah. Partially closed. It's just too... My big issue is this movie is trying to do what, as I am sitting right next to a Boogie Nights poster, it's trying to do what Boogie Nights does.
Audio medium.
Yes. I'm caressing my poster of Boogie Nights right
Dear
now.
God, Dan.
It's trying to do Boogie Nights. It's trying to do the end of Goodfellas with, like, the drug bust and being chased by the helicopter. But the thing that those two movies do that Babylon doesn't do is they have a constant sense of momentum. It never gets held up. Versus, because of the length that Babylon ends up being, and because of how purposefully we linger on scenes for a while, it slows it down, which makes the ending chase, everything's falling apart, kind of, it doesn't work for me.
I hear what you're saying in that my initial thought is, no, it moves along at a brisk pace, but no, it finds its moments where it wants to spend a lot of time on. And I can see what you're saying about that. I think it mostly works for me. Like, you spend a lot of time at the first party, a lot of time the first day on set, and then there are definitely moments that I think, like what we agreed, the best moments, the actual like shooting the movie scenes, I think those take their time and those are very good. But I can understand if other moments when it slows down you're not into. But I think I disagree. I think I can watch this and it feels like it moves at a pretty good momentum.
I think that the biggest thing that kind of slows it down for me is the scenes that work really well, like the ones that you mentioned, the character development and character establishing moments that happen in those really work. But then in kind of the, it's weird to call them lesser or secondary scenes that are more specifically focused on like establishing character and establishing relationships, those feel like, okay, we had the fun, now we have to get deeper into these characters. So, which is, whether or not it's necessary depends on how the movie would be written if those scenes aren't in there. But it does kind of feel like you had your potatoes, you have to eat your vegetables now.
Okay, I see what you're getting at.
Anyway, that's Babylon.
All right.
I can't go low enough.
You were
Ew.
working on that this whole time. How?
That was
Don't
really
give me
scary.
this. I can't go low enough. Like you
That
knew
was jarring.
The minute you said, Ian, you want to be on a Babylon podcast, you're like, oh, finally the didgeridoo impression is gonna hard launch on the didgeridoo.
You're not gonna believe me. I know you won't believe me. I've literally never made that sound before.
That was wild.
But Ian, thank you so much for being on this episode.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
We're so happy you could come here and be the voice of the Hive.
Thank you.
Mind.
Thank you. I love you. I love you. I love you.
I don't know how to say also in Spanish, so te amo tu.
Oh, también.
Tambien. Yeah. See.
Oh, like the movie.
Yeah.
And your mama also, I don't know. Ian, is
And
there
your
anywhere
mom,
that
too.
you would... Oh, that's what it is? I don't know. Ian, if you want people to find you online, or if you have anything that you want to hype or pitch, now is your time. Is there anywhere that you want people to find things about you or things that you're doing?
I don't really love the idea of people finding me, but if you must, I'm Ian Schrank.
What's your home address?
Yeah, what's your social, Ian?
Okay, one thing at a time. Let's start with Twitter and Instagram is @Ian Schrank. And yeah, that's where you can find me. I don't do much, nothing to promote.
That's all right.
Great. If you want to find In Conclusion, we are on Facebook and Twitter @and In Conclusion, on Instagram @In Conclusion Podcast, at Patreon patreon.com/In Conclusion. I am on Twitter @DanO'Keefe86 and on TikTok @NotDanO'Keefe. Anna, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram @AutomusPrime818, and you can find me on Twitter @AutobotsRollOut, capital O for Auto, capital E for Bots, capital R for Roll, and O and Roll, and O and Out R zeros.
We will be back next week talking about...
My head's spinning at Anna's different handles.
Yeah.
How is anyone gonna find you? That's actually
Don't.
smart. Anyway.
We'll be back next week talking about the talented Mr. Ripley.
Oh, I'm so excited for Thirst Fest 2023. 2024. What year is it?
2024.
Oh my god.
I mean, it's 1999.
It's 1921.
Ooh, we're going really far back.
So come back for that. In the meantime, everybody stay safe, have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Have to look at Two Hot Men again? Oh, darn.
A Creative Land podcast.